No-code websites are here to stay. Website building platforms such as Squarespace, Wix, Shopify, Webflow, and WordPress are rising in popularity and ubiquity, allowing anyone to make a website in hours. No technical knowledge required. But stop! Making a good website goes beyond learning the tool to create the site. Great websites require thinking ahead and planning before you even choose a site builder. And that's exactly what you're going to learn. I'm 𝗖rie, and I've advised hundreds of organizations on their web strategy. In this course, I'll teach you everything you should consider before you embark on a website project. We'll explore different types of websites, the purposes of each, and help you choose which one is right for you to make an incredible site. We'll break down what makes a website great, including practical tips for layout and design, site navigation, color palette selection, typography, imagery, and written content. Throughout each lesson, an emphasis will be placed on creating websites that are accessible, mobile-friendly, optimized for performance and search engines, and future-proof. We'll also talk about setting goals for your website and how to measure your site's effectiveness. After taking this course, you'll feel empowered to confidently move forward with a website project of any size or scale. Let's get started. When starting a website project, there are so many things to consider. It's exciting and also overwhelming. There can be a strong desire to get started right away, and few people pause to identify 3 key things when starting a website project. It's easy to forget this step, but stopping to identify them will make your website project much more likely to succeed. The 3 key things you should identify are: number 1, the website type or style. Earlier in the course, we talked about 5 common website types or styles. Those are informational websites, sales sites or landing pages, portfolio websites, e-commerce sites or online stores, and blogs or editorial websites. It's important to identify which one you're thinking of building before you get started, because each website type could require different tools, or at least tools used differently. I like to think of website projects like construction projects. You wouldn't attempt to construct a building without knowing what type of building it is, whether that's an office tower, a ski chalet, or a coastal cottage. The building materials are all similar: metal, lumber, concrete, or glass, but the way they're assembled varies greatly. It's the same with websites. The building materials are programming languages and coding protocols, and they can all be assembled differently. Make sure you pick the ones that align best with your project. Number 2, website purpose. The next thing you need to consider is the purpose of the website. Now, you don't need to get philosophical or wax poetic here, but you should pause for a moment to answer this question: why does this website need to exist? Now, I fully acknowledge that sometimes a website needs to exist because you just have to have one. If that's the case, then the purpose of the website is to be discoverable online, or to appear professional when a prospective client or customer is looking you up. Whether it's to inform, entertain, educate, or sell, every website should have a purpose. Think about what your site's purpose is before you start your website project and write it down. When you're working on the site, you'll have a myriad of decisions to make. It helps to have established your website's purpose beforehand. That way, when you're faced with a tough choice, say whether to include a certain content section or not, you can ask yourself, what best serves the purpose of the site? That question often helps make decisions about website content and functionality much easier. 3, website goals. Once you've defined the purpose of your website, you'll also need to define its goals. The 2 are very closely linked, but they are technically different. The purpose of a website is often to support business goals, but website goals need to be more specific than that. For example, If a company has an overall business goal of making money, the purpose of its website could be to sell products. But selling products shouldn't be the goal of the website. I like website goals that are more specific. Actually, I like goals that are specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound, aka SMART goals. The reason why I like SMART goals is because the level of detail involved really helps guide and keep you on track. They help establish a clear way forward so you can execute your plan and confidently say whether it was successful or not. Let's continue with this example of a website with the purpose of selling products, which supports the business goal of making money. If we state the website goal as selling products, that doesn't really help us chart a path forward. But if we state a SMART goal for the site, such as sell 20 products directly to customers on the website by December 31, that is so much more detailed. It's specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. With that website goal, we can move forward with a plan and clearly measure whether you were successful or not after December 31. Then, you can learn from the experience and set a new goal for the next phase. Websites can be expensive. They take time to create, and there are fees involved, from the nominal cost of registering a domain name all the way up to potentially large bills from top web professionals. Many people think of websites as a necessary expense of modern business, that you just have to have one, and it's going to cost time and money. And that's just to get a site up and running. Maintaining a website is also an effort. I challenge those that think of a website as a money pit to expand their thinking. A well-planned website has the potential to boost your bottom line, and the best way to know whether that's happening or not is to have clearly defined goals for the site. Start by making a list of all the things you hope the website can do for you. That list might include such things as make us look professional, provide a centralized hub for all of our content, such as articles or videos, demonstrate our past expertise and experience, make us money by selling products, save us administrative time by streamlining client appointment bookings, or answer common questions our prospective clients have, increasing their trust in our services. All of these hopes can be expressed as SMART goals. What's a SMART goal? Oh, it's a goal that's specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. Converting your hopes and dreams for your website into SMART goals is the trick to making it work for you, instead of the other way around. Some website goals are easier to express using the SMART framework than others. A statement such as, "We want our website to make us money by selling products," can be converted to a SMART goal fairly quickly. You can be a little more specific with exactly how much money and how many products. That also covers the measurable part. Both sales and inventory can be calculated. The goal is actionable if you have an e-commerce website or online store. Now, whether it's realistic or not is up to you and your past sales targets. Finally, making the goal time-bound puts a date on the horizon to achieve the goal by. When you put all this together, we want our website to make us money by selling products becomes a SMART goal when it sounds more like, our goal is for our website to make us 15% more profit by selling 200 more products this fiscal year in comparison to last year. What a gorgeous goal, clearly stated. Now, what about goals that are more qualitative? Informational or portfolio style websites may exist to demonstrate proficiency and professionalism. Editorial websites may exist to inform readers about specific topics. How do you express those goals quantitatively using the SMART framework? Because website goals should always support business goals, think about what the website will do for the business. For example, if a portfolio website exists to exhibit past work, What will that do for the business? Hopefully, it will secure new work, and that can most definitely be stated as a SMART goal. The website goal goes from being a vaguely defined demonstrate experience to something like secure 3 new clients this quarter by exhibiting past work and in-depth case studies on our website. That's specific, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. But is it measurable? That goal would be measurable if you can find a way to determine whether the clients decided to book with you after visiting the website. That could be tracked through a website analytics program, which we'll talk about later on. It could also be tracked by using a contact form on the site. If the client comes to you through the contact form, then you know they must have been on your website. When defining your website goals, you may find that you have more than one. That's totally fine. Do your best to zero in on the most important goal, though, the one that is as closely tied to your business goals as possible. The other website goals are meaningful too, but there should be a hierarchy of importance with just one website goal rising above the others. Having an ultimate goal clearly stated using the SMART framework is the key to having confidence that your website is successful or not. When establishing goals for your website, you'll likely have more than one. It's important to rank your website goals in a hierarchy, clearly establishing which one is the most essential. But it doesn't mean the other goals aren't meaningful too. Just like you would with your primary goal for your website, it's a good idea to write down your secondary goals using the SMART goal framework. That means your goals should be detailed enough that they're specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. Look over your website goals and measure how you're doing regularly. The interval for reviewing is up to you. It could be weekly, monthly, or quarterly. Just don't forget. Studying your website performance and checking in with your goals will give you essential information about how your site is doing. It will tell you whether you're on track or whether you need a course correction. Failing to regularly review your goals and your performance can result in lost time and lost business. In addition to tracking your website's primary and secondary goals, there's something else you can keep your eye on: milestones. Think about the journey a website visitor takes on your site. How do they go from first visiting the website to doing what you want them to do, and therefore hitting your goal? What parts of the website do they visit? What do they read? What do they click on? All of those moments are milestones on their journey through the site. When a website visitor makes it from one milestone to the next, it tells the website owner that they're getting closer to that ultimate goal. Website milestones need to be clear. It has to be evident that someone has either made it to that particular point in their journey through your site or they haven't. That's why actions are often used for website milestones. Things such as a website visitor clicking a button, adding an item to a shopping cart, signing up for an email newsletter, and so on. It's clear to see whether someone has performed those actions or not. There's no in-between stage. Now, it is possible to measure milestones that indicate more nebulous actions too. Let's consider an editorial website with the goal of educating people about a specific topic. A milestone of the time spent on the website is more than 4 minutes, or the website visitor scrolled 75% of the page, can indicate that someone is spending enough time or scrolling through enough content to learn something on the site. Those are quantitatively measurable milestones, and it's clear to see whether they're being achieved or not. We set up website milestones to measure success and to indicate that we're getting closer to our goals. But website milestones also help us learn. Identifying and tracking them allows us to be specific about what is and isn't working, which is a confidence too few website owners have. Watching website visitors reach milestones as they progress through the site can give us a better understanding of their path and also indicate where they're stumbling. If a few visitors reach a milestone, but don't complete the website journey that you planned, that's normal. Don't worry about it. Not everyone will go from being a casual visitor of a site to reaching your goal for them. But if a large amount of website visitors all falter at the same spot, that's where the website needs some work. Here's what you can do. Investigate what the issue is and why people aren't progressing past a certain milestone. Experiment with the content of the website at that point and see if the website visitor's journey changes. Review your results after a set amount of time to see if your experiment made a difference. If not, tweak it again. It will be worth the effort. Measurement is a key part of setting website goals. The best goals are measurable. That's why it's the M in the SMART goal framework. But what exactly are you going to measure? Figuring that out and where to do it can be tricky. Some of the data points available through website analytics or digital reporting tools are known as vanity metrics. They're measurements that make you feel good, such as the number of social media followers you have, or the number of visitors to your website. But what do those metrics really tell you about how you're doing? The truth is, we're drowning in data, but very little of it is insightful or actionable. Here's how to cut through the noise and find the information that will actually make a difference for your website and your business. I encourage you to determine a KPI. KPI is a somewhat clunky marketing and business term that stands for Key Performance Indicator. The emphasis here is on the word key. Your KPI should be the one metric that is more important than any other. It should be clear to see how your chosen KPI ties back to your website goal and business goal, and how it will demonstrate whether you're getting closer to meeting those goals. Focus on that and ignore the other data points available to you. Once you've established your KPI, you need to go find it. Here are 3 common places to look. Number 1, website analytics tools. Depending on how your website is built, there may be tracking tools available inside the site itself. Many website builders, such as Shopify, Squarespace, and Wix, provide reports detailing how many visitors your site receives, where those visitors came from, and what they did when they were on your website. These tracking tools are fine, but I prefer to rely on Google Analytics for the same information. Google Analytics is a free tool that can be connected to any website, and it's the gold standard in web analytics reporting. If the key performance indicator that relates to your website goal involves website visitors moving through the site in a certain way, or spending a determined amount of time on the site, or clicking specific sections or pages, you can find all of those data points inside Google Analytics. Now, an important note, the way Google Analytics looks changes frequently as the tool is updated. The data is all still there. It just may be in a different section or under a new heading. Look around and you'll find it. 2, other digital metrics. Sometimes the data point that will tell you whether you're closer to your website goal can't be found inside your website itself. It may be in another digital tool. For example, if the goal of your website is to collect email addresses for your email newsletter, then the key performance indicator that you're looking for is the number of newsletter signups. Even though people sign up on your website, the data is actually inside your email newsletter tool. Don't be afraid to look outside your website's reporting section or Google Analytics to find the info you need. 3, offline data. Similar to looking outside your website to find your KPI in another digital tool, you can look at offline data as well. For example, if your website goal is to have prospective clients call you to book a consultation, then the obvious way to measure whether you're successful is to count the number of phone calls you receive. Just because it's not inside a digital dashboard doesn't mean a measurement isn't significant or meaningful. It is a bit antiquated, but literally counting every time the phone rings is a fine way to measure. When you first set out to determine which metric to watch as your key performance indicator, you may choose the wrong one. It's okay to switch your KPI, but only if you find that there's a better way to measure the clean, actionable, insightful data you need. Do not switch up your KPI just because you don't like what it says about your performance. It can be tempting to only look at metrics that make you feel good, but in the end, all that's going to do is boost your ego, not your business's bottom line. Have you ever read through a website and felt like it was speaking directly to you? That the content of the site reflected your situation and what you were looking for, making you feel as if you were in the right place? In that case, I bet you were much more likely to buy what the site was selling or pick up the phone to call the business. That's the power of good copywriting. It can convert prospective customers into buyers, and it's much more rare than I wish it was on the web. We're going to change that right now. When composing the words for your website, you'll likely write statements about who you are and what you do. A common formula for business is to state, we, or I, do, or make, or sell, blank, for blank, so they blank. You fill in the details of your product or service, your target audience, and the results. For example, we make rechargeable batteries for outdoor enthusiasts so they can be in the woods off the grid for longer. That's the kind of statement that works really well when explaining your business to strangers. It's great for a bank loan application, but it's not great on a website. I'm going to let you in on the greatest secret I ever learned from professional copywriters. Stellar marketing copy isn't about you. It's about the customer. So a statement using the we do blank for blank so they blank formula is bad copywriting because it centers on you. It puts you at the beginning of the sentence. You want to center your customer. For every time you say we, I, or us in your marketing copy, you should have twice as many you, your, or yours statements. Which sounds more appealing? We make rechargeable batteries for outdoor enthusiasts so they can be in the woods off the grid for longer. Or, you need a battery that can last in the woods as long as you do. If I was in the market for a rechargeable battery, the second statement would most definitely be more appealing to me. It centers the experience and the needs of the customer, speaking directly to them. Here's how to write website copy that will appeal to your target audience. Step 1, identify. It sounds obvious, but you can't talk directly to your target audience until you know who they are. Do a brainstorming session with your colleagues and coworkers. Who are your best clients or customers? What do you love about them? What do they have in common? Write it all down. Step 2, interview. Make a list of 5 or 6 of your best customers or clients and reach out to them. Ask if you can have a phone or video call with them for 15 minutes. I like phone or video calls because they can be recorded. Ask your customers to tell you all about what was going on when they were looking for a product or service like yours. What were they looking for exactly? How would they describe it? What were they feeling? What, if any, hesitations or concerns did they have? Were they in a rush, or were they taking their time to decide? Be careful not to lead them to specific answers. You want to be open-ended with your questions so you can listen to what words they use to describe their situation. Step 3, look for patterns. Go through the recordings from your customer interviews and see if there are any similarities. Look for related situations or sentiments and note words that came up repeatedly. Step 4, write from their perspective. Once you better understand the place that your target audience is coming from, You can write your website copy. Use the words that they use. Describe what they're looking for and how your product or service is perfect for them. Be sure to center their experience, their needs, and their wants throughout. You can also go through correspondence you may have with your customers to look for repeatedly used words, phrases, and situations. Emails that are sent to your company's customer service inbox are great for this. So are comments left on social media posts. Again, you're looking for similar attitudes and repeated uses of the same phrases. Put those sentiments and words into your website copy, and you'll attract more of those target customers right to you. When planning and building your website, you have so much to consider and focus on that you might overlook a key question. How are people going to find your site when it's up? It's estimated that over 90% of people start with a web search when they're trying to find a new product or service online. Search engines such as Google can drive a lot of traffic to your website, but only if you're strategic about it. The activity of enhancing your website so it's more likely to be found in internet searches is called search engine optimization, or SEO. Optimizing your site for search engines begins with understanding how they work. Search engines have 4 main tasks. Task 1 is crawling the web. Search engines such as Google have robots, or computers, that browse through all the pages available on the public internet. Because these robots are looking at the web, they're known as spiders, and they crawl web pages. They look at what's on each page, and they also look at the relationship between web pages, how they're linked and interconnected. Because these search engine spiders are robots, they can look at both the content of web pages and also the code of the web pages. Learning how they read the web is essential so you can best write in a way they will understand. Task 2 is indexing the web. As the search engine spider bots crawl the web, they're documenting what they find. This all goes into a huge index or catalog of the internet. It's important to know that when you do a Google search, you're not actually searching the live internet. You're searching Google's index of the internet. If a search engine bot can't understand a web page, it won't make it into the index, and the site won't appear in search engine results. When a spider bot crawls a web page, it notes the words on the page, adding them to the index. But search engines don't consider all text to be of equal importance. They know that in natural language and writing, words that appear in certain places tend to have more significance. For example, words that appear in the URL or web address of the web page, the title of the page, and the headings on the page carry more weight than the words that appear in the paragraph text. Now that you know this, you can be more strategic in your website writing. If there are important words that you want to be found for, make sure they appear in those spots. Task 3 is analyzing search queries. Google and other search engines try to understand the web and also try to understand the meaning or intent behind someone's search query. This is all so that they can make the best possible match between the person who's looking and what they're looking for. When search engine robots crawl and index your website, they're definitely looking at the content of the site, but they're also looking at how much traffic the website gets, how long it's been online, how much time visitors spend on the website, how many links go to the site's web pages from other websites, whether the site is fast or slow, whether it's mobile friendly or not, whether the site uses HTTPS encryption. Optimizing your site for those considerations can also really help enhance your presence in search engine results. Task 4 is delivering search results. This is the part of search engines that you're likely already familiar with. After they've crawled, indexed and analyzed the content of a website and the search query itself, they deliver results, ranked in order of relevancy for the searcher. The cycle of search engines crawling and indexing the web never really stops. It's hard to know exactly when a search engine's robot will come by your site to look at your content and catalog it. Very popular, high-traffic websites are crawled constantly. That's why you see very timely results from news websites and social media platforms such as Twitter and LinkedIn when you do a web search. For the rest of us, it can take anywhere from a few days to a few months to have your site crawled and indexed. And there's no way to ask a search engine to crawl your site faster. Instead, keep working away at optimizing your site's content, and the search engines will eventually come back around. And when they do, you'll be ready. Google and other search engines crawl, index, analyze, and rank web pages in an effort to best match websites to what the searcher is looking for. The words on your web pages really matter to search engines. It's through cataloging them that they can best understand what your site is all about. And that should matter to you, the website owner, because when the words on your site match up with the words someone types into a search engine, you're much more likely to come up in the search results. But having those key words, the words or phrases that someone types into a search engine, on your site isn't enough. That's because yours is likely not the only website on the internet that contains those words. With billions of other sites out there, it's important to realize that keyword competition factors into search engine rankings. If another website has the same keywords as yours, but is better optimized for search engines in other ways, they're going to outrank you. For example, a website that has high site traffic or many links that go to it from other websites, thus indicating its popularity, or has been online for a long time, could appear higher than you in search engine results. It may not be possible to compete against those sites for the same keywords. You'll likely need to choose different keywords to drive traffic to your site, keywords that have lower competition. But as you brainstorm alternative keywords for your site, you don't want to get too obscure. There's no point in trying to rank your website in search engine results for a keyword or phrase that no one is actually searching for. The sweet spot with keywords on your website is to use ones that are low to medium competition, but medium to high in search traffic volume. So, how do you know what words are low competition and high search volume on the internet? You use keyword research tools. I really like the Keyword Explorer tool inside Moz Pro. It will tell you what the search volume and search competition is for the keywords you type in, and also give you suggestions for other keywords to consider. Make a list of 5 to 10 high-volume, low-competition keywords for every page of your website that you want to rank in search engine results. You don't have to have the same keywords for every page. They should be mostly different because the pages of your site are different, but it is okay if there's some crossover. Then, take those keywords and sprinkle them throughout the content of your web pages. Be sure to put them in the places that Google and other search engines consider to be important: the URL or web address of the page title, page headings, inside links, and even in the alt text of the images on the page. We'll talk more about alt text later in the course. It will take a little while for search engines to notice that you've updated the content of your web pages and for them to adjust your rankings. You can use a tool like Moz Pro to track your results, and you should see an increase in web traffic coming from people searching for your keywords. If you're not, you can always rewrite parts of your website. Regularly tweaking and modifying your content to best suit your target audience and search engines is not just normal, it's recommended. Forgive the cliche, but images are truly worth 1,000 words, especially on the web, where a carefully chosen image can say so much about your business. Humans are visual creatures, and we look to photographs and illustrations to provide meaning and depth. Images set the tone and mood of a website, bringing character to your business and how it's portrayed. For example, look at these web page mockups. Everything on these two pages is exactly the same except for the images. Even though the words, the layout, the fonts, and the colors are cloned, the photograph is clearly different. See how it changes the whole feel of the design? That's the power of images. So, where do you find great photos and illustrations for your website? There are a few options. Searching for royalty-free images, or stock images, is a common place to start. It's important to note that royalty-free doesn't mean free or free from copyright. Royalty-free means that you pay for the image once and can use it multiple times. You don't have to pay a royalty to the photographer each time you use the image. Shutterstock, iStock Photo, and Getty Images all have royalty-free photos available through their websites. The pricing is usually determined by the size of the image, with the price increasing as the size you need increases. Some of these royalty-free image websites also have monthly plans where you pay to access a certain number of images a month. There are some websites online that offer royalty-free stock images that are also free of charge. Unsplash, Burst, Pexels, and Pixabay are all quite popular for this reason. But even though they're free of charge and royalty-free, the images are not copyright-free. That means there's a license in place for the ways that you can and cannot use the image. Be sure to check each site carefully before taking an image and running with it. Speaking of taking images, don't steal photos or illustrations online. Pictures that come up in a Google image search are not there for the taking. You need to ensure that you have the proper license and the paperwork to back it up for any imagery you use on your website. That brings me to my favorite type of image to use on your site, your own. Photos and illustrations that you have created yourself or hired a professional to create for you are well worth the cost. That's because they'll be unique. Images available online, especially the ones that are free, are used by many others. If you really want your business's website to stand out, use your own images. They'll be one of a kind, just like you. I started designing websites in 2006, when the internet was a much simpler place. Back in those days, we knew exactly what size a web page was because desktop computers and laptops all had roughly the same screen size and resolution. We knew how tall and wide to make a website's design so it would fit nicely on the screen. It was like having a painter's canvas. There were clearly defined edges of where the site would end and begin. Designing a website in the earlier days of the internet had some challenges. There were only 8 fonts to choose from, but knowing the dimensions of a site wasn't a problem. Then, new devices with different size screens were released. Smartphones and tablets grew in popularity. The concept of setting a fixed size for a website started to make less and less sense. Sure, it would look great on a desktop or laptop computer, but what would the site look like on a smartphone? What if the phone is turned vertically or horizontally? Would people have to pinch and zoom to view the content? It was a real challenge for web designers like me. To use the painter's canvas analogy again, imagine trying to plan out a painting when your canvas keeps changing size, orientation, and proportions. It's impossible. It required a complete shift in the ways we think about websites. They're not fixed dimensions, rigidly locked into a layout that's unchanging. Websites need to be dynamic, allowing the content, particularly the presentation of the content, to change, depending on the context, aka what screen it's being viewed on. This shift in thinking is called responsive design, and you're likely already familiar with it, even if you didn't know its name. Responsive design is a simple concept. The website always has the same content, the words, images, and other content blocks, and they're always on the site. The way they're displayed changes. The site responds to the size of the screen it's being displayed on, moving content blocks and changing design elements as needed. Let's look at an example so you can see what I mean. Here's a screenshot of a website as it would be displayed on a laptop computer. And here's the same website as it would be displayed on a smartphone. The site has all the same content, the navigation menu, the text, the images, but the appearance of the content has changed. When the website is viewed on a laptop, the navigation menu is displayed horizontally across the top of the screen. On a smartphone, there's not enough room, so the menu collapses into a mobile-friendly menu. The website visitor can tap the menu icon with the 3 horizontal lines, and the menu will expand for them to see their options. Look at the text on the contact page from the same website. See how the presentation of the text changes depending on the screen it's being viewed on? On the laptop, there's more screen real estate, so text that's in columns can appear side by side. But on the smartphone, with less room, the text needs to go down to one longer column. And finally, look at the image at the top of the homepage. This is where things get really fun. It's quite common for image areas to change on websites due to responsive design. An image that takes up a large space when the site is viewed on a laptop may become much smaller on a smartphone. Or the image may be cropped, only showing the center of the picture while the sides disappear. It's impossible to say what's the best image size for a web page. That's because of responsive design. It makes image selection, and particularly image sizing, very tricky. It can be tempting to think of your website as a fixed canvas size and select images with that in your mind. But don't. Remember that your site needs to be fluid and dynamic. Think about what will happen to the images when the site is viewed on a different screen, one that may be smaller or larger, turned horizontally or vertically. Before you select images for your website, check the template or design that your site will use. You can test the design using a responsive website simulator. The Chrome web browser has one built in called Device Mode, and Firefox has Responsive Design View. I like these simulators, but I like real-world tests even more. Before you choose a website template or sign off on a website design, try it out on different devices if you can. Use your laptop and smartphone, borrow a tablet from a friend, and so on. See what happens to all the content, especially the images, when the screen size changes. Note what parts, if any, of the image get cut off. Then choose your website images accordingly. As much as you may love a particular image, if it has its most important feature in an area that will be cropped, then don't use it. Pick out another image and be sure to test and test again. Think for a moment about how you browse the web. If you visit a website that takes a bit of time to load, you're likely to wait. At first. Then your patience grows thin. You start to wonder if it's worth waiting for. You ask yourself, do I really need to visit this website? And think about navigating away. If the site still hasn't loaded yet, you give up and move on. Sound familiar? It's a common experience with slow loading websites. So common that a 2017 study by Google found that the likelihood of someone leaving a website while it's loading increases 32% as page load time goes from 1 to 3 seconds. What blows my mind is how fast your brain goes through this process. You go from wanting to visit a site to completely abandoning it, all in the space of a few seconds. We know statistically and anecdotally that having a fast loading website is essential. After all, people won't be able to read your content, shop for your products, or learn more about your services if they leave your website before they've even arrived. So, what makes a website slow, and what can be done about it? If you run a site through a speed test, such as Google's Page Speed Insights or Pingdom Website Speed Test, you'll likely get technical results. These tools will often suggest that you reduce and minify code, which are great suggestions, but they're probably beyond your abilities. If you're planning on working with a professional web developer for your site, talk with them about the technical things that can be done to speed it up. And if you're using an out-of-the-box website builder tool, such as Squarespace or Shopify, you may have to just accept that some of your website's load time will be tied to things outside your control. There is one thing that's within your control, though, whether your site is being made for you or if you're going to go the DIY route. That's image file size, and it's a big contributor to website speed. That's because a web browser has to fully load an image before it can be displayed, and the larger the image file size is, the longer it takes. An important note, I'm talking about image file size, not image dimension size. It's possible to reduce the size of an image file without reducing the dimensions or appearance of the image. We do this through image compression. The most common image types we use on the web are JPEG and PNGs, and both can be compressed to reduce file size without reducing image quality. For example, look at the photos on the left and on the right. They look the same, right? The one on the left is an uncompressed image, and its file size is 4 times larger than the one on the right. You probably wouldn't have noticed a difference unless I told you. If you compress your images correctly, they'll be like this, totally indistinguishable. The images will still look great and load much faster. If you don't compress your images correctly, by going too far, they'll look pixely or blurry. Here's an example of the same image with even more image compression applied to the file. Compressing JPEG and PNG images is a bit of an art. You want to reduce the file size as much as possible, but not go so far as to lose image quality. Professional designers know how to use tools such as Photoshop to achieve this balance, and if you're working with a pro, you can ask them to help. If you're not, you can use an online compression tool such as TinyPNG, TinyJPEG, or Compressor. Compressing your images adds an extra step to your website task list, but it's worth it for the increase in website speed that compressed images will bring. There is one thing that is absolutely essential for the images on your website, and you may not have even known about it. It's called alt text, and it's important that you include it along with all of your images. Alt text is short for alternative text. It's a brief piece of text that describes an image on a web page. It's similar to an image caption, but technically different. Alt text lives inside the code of a website. It's not displayed for website visitors to see, like a caption would be. Alt text finds its way into the code of your site because you should be putting it there whenever you upload an image. If you are using a content management system such as WordPress or Wix, Squarespace or Shopify, there will be a form field asking you for alt text when you upload images to your site. Alt text is displayed when an image cannot be displayed on a web page. That might happen for a number of reasons, such as the image itself being broken or missing, or the person visiting the website might have images turned off in their web browser. Alt text is also displayed when someone is using screen reader software. Screen reader software is used by people with visual and cognitive disabilities, and it reads the web aloud to them. Screen readers are great at reading the text on a web page, but when they get to an image, they don't know what to say, so they read the alt text aloud. Here's a screenshot of a WordPress website showing the media gallery, the area where you upload images. Over to the left, you can see the image in the media gallery. To the right, you can see the field asking for alternative text. Here's what the website looks like to visitors. The alt text is not visible. But if you have a look at the code that's under the hood of this page, as you can see in this screenshot, you'll see that the alt text is there, just as I entered it inside the site builder. Alt text is important for a number of reasons. The most important one is that alt text is a core pillar of website accessibility. We believe that the web is for everyone, and everyone should be able to access the information presented on every web page. Alt text also extends your website's reach to more people, which is good for business. Alt text may be required by law, depending on where you live in the world. A number of regions are now legislating that alt text must be included in websites as part of their area's accessibility laws. That being said, I think it's important to have alt text on every image on the web, regardless of whether or not you have a law telling you to do so. Here are some tips for writing great alt text for your website. First up, consider the context and the purpose of the image, and then describe it. When you're describing your image, you want to be succinct. This is not the time to go on and on with paragraphs of information. That being said, you can use multiple words with spaces between them, but alt text is plain text. You can't add formatting, such as bold or italics, and you can't include symbols. You don't need to start your alt text with a phrase such as image of or picture of. That's already implied by it being alt text. You don't need to include alt text on decorative images on a web page. Let's say, for example, you have an image of a squiggly line that you're using to break up chunks of text. You don't need to input alt text for that image because it's purely decorative. Let's look at a photo and some potential options for alt text that could accompany it. Alt text such as dog would be just fine. Even better would be greyhound dog. And in my opinion, the best alt text for this image would be greyhound dog in the middle of a race, because it gives context to the image, but it's still short and succinct. It's important to talk about alt text and SEO, or search engine optimization. That's because search engines such as Google and Microsoft Bing can look at the code of a web page, which means they're going to see your alt text. So if you're trying to optimize your web page for a particular keyword, you can include it in your alt text, but only if it's appropriate for the context of the image. This is not an opportunity for keyword stuffing. Here's an example to show you what I mean. With this image, good alt text would be wetsuits hanging next to surfboards. Bad alt text would be trying to jam as many keywords as you possibly can into that field, such as wetsuits, surfboards, best wetsuits for surfing, dry suits, surfing, wetsuits. It doesn't make sense, and it's not good alt text. Ultimately, as a website owner, alt text is your responsibility. Make it a habit. From now on, every time you upload an image, I want you to add alt text to it as well. You'll be increasing your website's discoverability, and most importantly, you'll be helping to make the web more accessible for everyone, and that's a good thing. So thank you. When thinking about a new website or redesigning an existing one, a common place to start is to plan out the different sections. Website owners will often draft a list of pages that their site will require: a home page, a contact page, an about page, and so on. Knowing what sections you want provides structure for developing and organizing the content. Listing the sections, or pages, of a website builds a frame upon which everything else is put together. There are a few tools that can help with this task. I've seen people use index cards or post-it notes. They write the name of the website section or page on each card or sticky note and lay them out on the ground or on a wall. I've also seen people use spreadsheet software to do the same thing. Put the names of the website sections or pages in cells of the spreadsheet and move them around. Whether you go analog or digital with your planning doesn't matter. Use whatever method feels right for you. It doesn't need to be high tech. It just needs to be easy to manipulate and move the sections or pages around in your planning. Because what you're really doing is architecting a website hierarchy. As you map out everything you want on your site, you'll quickly discover that some content is more important than other content. For example, an e-commerce website that exists to sell products needs to have a terms and conditions page. But that terms and conditions page is less crucial to the goal of the website, selling products. It should be visible and accessible to website visitors, but the terms and conditions page doesn't need to be featured as prominently as the items on the site. This content hierarchy should be reflected in your website's navigation system. Making your site easy to navigate for your website visitors is essential. For that, we lean on website conventions, a series of design norms that are fairly consistent across the web. They help make your site feel familiar to a visitor. Website conventions include placing your logo in the upper left corner or the top center of the site, and having your main navigation menu in the area below or next to the logo. While I do encourage you to get creative with your website design, don't stray too far from website conventions. If someone can't find what they're looking for when they're on your site, they'll leave. When planning out your website's navigation, you may find that there are so many sections or pages of the site that you can't fit them all into one menu. That's common with information-heavy websites, editorial or blog sites, and also e-commerce websites or online stores. Don't worry. You can have more than one navigation menu area on your site. Take the sections that are less important, hierarchically, and put them in a menu in a less prominent place. For example, links to customer support, privacy policies, and terms and conditions pages are often found in the footer of a website. Wherever the navigation ends up on your site, you need to make sure it works on different devices. Someone could be visiting your site on their smartphone, tablet, desktop computer, or even their television. All these devices have different screen sizes and orientations, and your navigation menus need to be prominently displayed and easy to access on all of them. It's a modern website convention for a site's navigation menu to adapt to the size of the screen it's being displayed on. That means the navigation may collapse to a mobile menu or expand to fill the screen space. It's essential to test your website on a number of different devices to make sure it looks good and is easy to access everywhere. Just as website conventions suggest that the navigation menu of your site should be in an expected location, the actual words used in your navigation menu should be fairly predictable as well. People should have a good idea of what each section of the site contains and what they'll get when they click the links in your menu. When naming the page titles or links in your site's navigation menu, pick words that are clear and concise. For example, in this cake design website, a link in the navigation bar says recipes. I'm fairly certain that if we click on that link, we'll be taken to a web page with recipes for cakes and other related items. That being said, we know that in addition to human visitors to our website, search engines also look at our sites. They know that critical words go in the page titles and navigation of a site and treat those words with greater importance than the other ones. So, if there are certain keywords that you're trying to rank your website for, you can try to put those in the page titles and navigation as well. In the case of the cake design website, if they were trying to rank for the phrase cake recipes in search engine results, they could have said cake recipes instead of just recipes in the site's menu bar. While all the content of your website, including the navigation, should appeal to humans first and search engine robots second, it is possible to appease both. Keep your site's navigation clear, succinct, and predictable, and you're on your way to website success. We've talked about a number of different styles of websites in this course, and common goals for each. While the content of a website will always be the primary driver of the design, different styles of sites naturally lend themselves to different types of layouts. Let's have a look at a few of these and how they display at different screen sizes and orientations. Here's an informational style site. Its purpose is to provide information about the company and their products. Most of the content of this site is text, which could be quite boring on its own. Instead, the site uses what we call hero images, large feature images at the top of each page, followed by text that's broken up into smaller sections with headings. This layout choice makes the site more aesthetically pleasing and also makes all that text easier to read and digest. Portfolio sites, on the other hand, tend to be image heavy. They're for displaying portfolios of work, after all. On this photography portfolio website, the site owner has chosen to go with thumbnail images of their photos. When you click them or tap on them on a mobile device, the image displays in a larger format, floating up in front of everything else. This is called a lightbox effect, and it's common on portfolio websites. It allows the website visitor to see a number of images at a glance, and then click on the ones they'd like to see with more detail. On an editorial website, such as a magazine or newspaper site, you'll often see multiple navigation menus throughout the site's layout. On this blog site, which has posts that are categorized, there's a list of the categories. Website visitors can see all the recent blog posts at a glance, or dive further into a particular topic by selecting beauty, environment, events, and so on. Speaking of multiple navigation menus on a website, those regularly appear in online stores too. This online store website features filter menus that allow you to sort the products based on categories and characters. Depending on what's selected, the products displayed in a tiled grid layout change. For more product information, website visitors can click on the name or photo of the item. Then they're taken to the individual product page, which contains a larger image and description of the item, plus any options available, such as color choices. When considering a web page layout, it's important for you to remember that the layout can change based on the size of the screen it's being viewed on. The exact same website can look quite different when it's being viewed on a laptop or a smartphone. That makes thinking about page layouts quite challenging. I encourage you to not think about websites as fixed canvases with content blocks that are locked into place. Instead, think of them as dynamic, fluid spaces where content can and will move around. The most important thing to identify is the hierarchy or importance of the content, and make sure that's reflected at all times. Regardless of the size or layout of the screen, if a piece of content is the most important thing on the page, it needs to be displayed prominently, and the second most important piece needs to be in relation to that, and so on. If all of the content appears to be as important as the rest, then nothing will stand out and nothing is important. It's all the same. Play around with image size, font weight, and color to make certain pieces of content grow or shrink in prominence. A good way to check what parts of a web page are standing out is to do what I call the close your eyes test. Load the web page on your device and then close your eyes. Open them for 3 seconds and look at the page and then close them again. Wait a moment or two and ask yourself, what do I remember seeing? Whatever stands out in your mind is likely the thing that has the highest visual hierarchy on the page. If it's not the thing that's most important for website visitors to see, then you need to make an adjustment to your page layout and design elements. It's not a problem. Just experiment with moving things around a bit and then try the close your eyes test again. One of the most enjoyable parts of website design is picking colors. It can be a lot of fun to look through color palettes, deciding which colors best represent your organization and the message you want to convey on your site. I love exploring color trends and creating color palettes using online tools such as Adobe Color and Color Lovers. But when picking colors for a website, there's more than just aesthetics at play. Your website's colors should match any existing branding for your business. Look at your logo and other designed elements you have, such as business cards. What color is most prominent? Second most? In this logo for 2 Trees Olive Oil, there are 3 colors: the blue and green in the illustration and the dark brown used for the words. It would make sense to use these as the primary colors for the company's website. It would be fine to use just those 3 colors on the site, but the designer chose to go one step further to include some secondary or accent colors as well. A lighter blue and darker olive green perfectly complement the main brand colors. When you pick colors for your own website, there are some important things to consider. The first is that colors don't look the same everywhere. In the world of print design or manufacturing, there are paint and color systems, such as Pantone, that ensure a company's brand colors look exactly the same. From business cards to packaging, how colors are printed can be controlled. There's no such system on the web because the way color is presented comes down to the individual screen a website is being displayed on. If the colors are off on someone's computer or smartphone, there's really nothing you can do about it. There's no way to ensure a color looks exactly the same across the internet, so just don't sweat it. Instead, know that your site's colors will look as close as possible to what you've chosen, but their exact rendering may be a bit different from screen to screen. For example, what looks like hot pink on one screen may appear fuchsia on another, or what looks like teal could be aqua. As long as you're okay with a rough approximation of a particular color, you'll be fine. For that reason, and also for the reason of website accessibility, it's essential that you choose colors for your website that have high contrast. This is the second important thing you need to remember. In order to make your website in compliance with the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, you need to have enough color contrast between the text color and background color of your website so that people with low vision or color blindness can still read it. There are a few different tools on the web that can tell you whether there's enough contrast between your site's font colors. I like a site called Contrast Checker and also webpage Contrast Check tool because they both tell you whether there's enough contrast for font color at large and small font sizes. If we take the colors from Two Trees Olive Oil's palette and put them in these tools, we find that there's definitely enough contrast between the dark blue, the dark green, and the dark brown colors, and white. So, all the text on the site can either be these colors on a white background or white text on a colored background. But only these colors, not the secondary colors in the palette, such as light blue. There's not enough contrast to use the light blue for text, so the site uses it for decorative elements, such as the olive branch illustrations only. One final note about color and websites. Be mindful of any time you're using color to make an item stand out, such as a link in the middle of text. There needs to be enough contrast between the link text color and the body text color. To be extra sure the link is distinct, I suggest adding an underline to it as well. That way, it'll be clear to all website visitors that it's different from the main text. In the early days of the web, we could only choose from 8 fonts when designing sites. That's because there were only a handful of typefaces that were sure to exist on most computers out there. And if you picked a font outside that list, you risked having your site not display correctly. Nowadays, the way websites are coded has changed, and it's possible to have fonts on a site that aren't installed on someone's computer. This has opened up a world of possibilities for typography on the web. There are hundreds, probably even thousands of fonts to choose from when planning your site. It's so exciting! But all that choice means it's easy to make mistakes with your font selection. Having too many fonts, or ones that don't work in concert with the others on the page, are big no-nos in the design world. Limiting your typography choices to just 1 or 2 and no more than 3 fonts will make your site look professional and aesthetically pleasing. Before we talk about choosing fonts for a site, let's talk about some basics of typography, the types of fonts, and where to use them. Serif fonts have ornamental caps, stems, or feet on letters. They're traditional typefaces. Sans serif fonts are more modern. The word sans means without in French, and these typefaces are literally without ornamental serifs. The ends of the letters are clean. When you look at a serif font and a sans serif font next to each other, it's easy to see the difference. In this example, the font on the left is Times New Roman, and on the right is Arial. See the ornamental serifs on the left? They're absent, or sans, on the right. In print design for books, newspapers, and magazines, sans serif fonts are usually reserved for headlines, and serif fonts are used for paragraph text. That's because it's believed that the ornamental elements, the serifs, help the eye to connect the letters while reading, which makes for a more pleasurable and elegant reading experience. Strangely, the exact opposite is true on digital screens. Serif fonts make for better headings, and sans serif fonts enhance readability in paragraph text. The other 2 types of fonts are script and decorative. Script fonts often mimic handwriting or hand lettering. They're lovely and can convey a lot of personality, but can also be hard to read, so use them carefully. Decorative fonts are exactly what they sound like, ornamental typefaces that are often used for logos or decorative accents. Like script fonts, they can be hard to read and should be used sparingly on the web. There are a few resources out there to help you pick fonts for your website. Google Fonts has a type pairings tool inside it. Select a typeface you'd like to explore, and then click Pairings to find others that complement it. I also really like a site called FontJoy. It allows you to paste in some sample text and then choose typefaces for your heading, accent, and body copy based on how much contrast you'd like between them. In addition to selecting the typefaces themselves, the size of your fonts can also make a big difference to the look and feel of your website. Make sure there's a clear distinction between the font sizes for your first level headings, second level headings, accent text, and body copy. Take some time to explore the typefaces available to you and use font pairing tools to help choose which ones will work well together. Play with the size and varieties available within each typeface, such as regular, bold, and italics. As you experiment, you'll get a sense of how typography really impacts the overall look and feel of a website. It's an important decision and shouldn't be rushed. Oh, one final note about typography on the web. Do not embed type directly into images. Type that's technically inside an image can't be read by screen reading software that people with disabilities use. And it also can't be read by search engines. Having type inside a picture is bad for accessibility and SEO. Type is type, and it needs to sit on top of or next to images on a website, not embedded inside the image itself. Keep them separate, and you'll be sure to succeed. Congratulations! Now that you've finished this course, you are in the perfect position to move forward with your website. And trust me, with what you now know, you're already miles ahead of where most people are when they start out planning a site. You should now have a solid idea of what type of site you're going to make and be able to state its purpose and goals. Once you have those, you should note your plans for measuring against those goals. Don't forget this important step. Go forth and write your search engine optimized website content, gather your images, plan your mobile-friendly layout, select an accessible color palette, and pick your fonts. It's also time to choose a website builder, such as Shopify, Wix, Squarespace, WordPress, or Webflow. There are fantastic guides for each of these platforms right here on LinkedIn Learning. I wish you the best of luck with your site. I'm rooting for you.